Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Luciano Pavarotti. The voice of the century. Luciano Pavarotti, one of the most celebrated tenors in the history of opera, remains a symbol of vocal brilliance, charisma, and universal appeal. Born on October 12, 1935, in Modena, Italy, Pavarotti rose from humble beginnings to become a global icon whose voice transcended the boundaries of classical music. His unique combination of technical mastery and emotional depth earned him the title, the King of the High Seas, and made opera accessible to millions around the world. Early life and musical beginnings. Pavarotti grew up in a working-class family. His father, Fernando, was a baker and an amateur tenor, while his mother, Adele, worked in a cigar factory. It was through his father's passion for music that young Luciano discovered his love for singing. Initially, he dreamed of becoming a professional soccer player. But after hearing the great tenor Giuseppe Di Stefano, he shifted his focus to opera. He studied under Arrigo Pola and Ettore Campigalliani, honing his craft with discipline and devotion. His breakthrough came in 1961 when he won the prestigious Achille Peri competition in Reggio Emilia. That same year, he made his professional debut as Rodolfo in La Bohème at the Teatro Municipal in Reggio Emilia, a role that would become one of his signatures. Rise to international fame. By the late 1960s, Pavarotti's career was on a meteoric rise. His 1963 performance at the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, marked the beginning of his international acclaim. His partnership with soprano Joan Sutherland, who invited him to tour Australia in 1965, proved crucial. She helped refine his technique and boost his confidence on the world stage. The 1970s saw Pavarotti dominate the opera world, performing at prestigious venues such as the Metropolitan Opera in New York, La Scala in Milan, and the Vienna State Opera. His performance in Donizetti's La Fille du Regiment, where he effortlessly delivered 9 high Cs in a row, became legendary and cemented his reputation as a tenor of extraordinary power and precision. The three tenors and global stardom. Pavarotti's fame extended beyond opera through his collaboration with fellow tenors Placido Domingo and José Carreras. The trio's 1990 concert in Rome, held during the FIFA World Cup, became one of the most watched classical music events in history. The three tenors' albums and tours brought opera to stadiums and millions of new listeners, blending classical music with pop culture in an unprecedented way. Humanitarian work and legacy. Beyond his artistry, Pavarotti was deeply committed to humanitarian causes. He organized and performed in numerous charity concerts, raising funds for refugees, victims of war, and disaster relief efforts. His Pavarotti and Friends concerts in Modena featured collaborations with pop stars such as Bono, Sting, and Celine Dion, showcasing his belief that music should unite people of all backgrounds. Over his career, Pavarotti received countless awards and honors, including Grammy Awards, Kennedy Center Honors, and the Red Cross Award for services to humanity. His recordings continue to inspire singers and music lovers alike, preserving his voice as one of the most recognizable in history. Final years and death. Pavarotti continued to perform well into the 2000s, even after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2006. His final performance took place at the 2006 Winter Olympics in Turin, where he sang Nessun Dorma to thunderous applause. He passed away on September 6, 2007, in his hometown of Modena, leaving behind a legacy of beauty, generosity, and timeless music. Conclusion. Luciano Pavarotti was more than just an opera singer. He was a cultural ambassador who made classical music a global phenomenon. His voice, radiant and powerful, carried not only notes but emotions that touched hearts across generations. Even years after his passing, Pavarotti's music continues to remind the world that true artistry transcends language, time, and borders. Luciano Pavarotti, the maestro who made the world fall in love with opera. Expanded edition. Luciano Pavarotti was not just an opera singer, he was a phenomenon. With a voice that could move audiences to tears and a presence that filled concert halls and stadiums alike, he redefined what it meant to be a classical artist. His life was a journey from modest beginnings in Italy to the pinnacle of global stardom, bridging the gap between the elite world of opera and the universal language of popular music. A modest beginning in Modena. Luciano Pavarotti was born in Modena, a small city in northern Italy, on October 12, 1935. His early life was far from glamorous. His family lived modestly. His father, Fernando, was a baker who also sang in a local church choir, while his mother, Adele, worked in a cigar factory. Despite their limited means, the Pavarotti household was filled with music. His father's record collection, featuring legendary tenors like Beniamino Gigli and Enrico Caruso, was the young Luciano's first introduction to the world of opera. Initially, Pavarotti's dreams were quite different. A passionate soccer player, he seriously considered pursuing a professional sports career. However, after joining a local male chorus, he experienced the joy of performing on stage and realized that singing was his true calling. Inspired by the emotional power of the human voice, he began formal vocal training under the guidance of Arrigo Pola and later Ettore Campigalliani. The road to stardom. Pavarotti's first major break came in 1961, when he won the prestigious Achille Peri competition. That same year, he made his operatic debut as Rodolfo in Puccini's La Bohème, a role that would follow him throughout his career. His rich, lyrical tone and effortless high notes immediately drew attention. By 1963, he was performing at the Royal Opera House in London, standing in for an ailing Giuseppe Di Stefano. The performance was a triumph, marking the beginning of an international career that would span over 4 decades. In the mid-1960s, Pavarotti's partnership with the Australian soprano Joan Sutherland proved crucial. Touring with her across Australia, he perfected his technique and developed his distinctive, ringing sound that became instantly recognizable. Dominating the world's great stages throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Pavarotti became synonymous with excellence in opera. His performances in works such as Rigoletto, Tosca, La Traviata, and Turandot captivated audiences. His portrayal of Rodolfo in La Bohème and Cavaradossi in Tosca were particularly praised for their emotional sincerity and vocal brilliance. In 1972, during a performance of Donizetti's La Fille du Régiment at New York's Metropolitan Opera, he hit 9 consecutive high Cs with astonishing ease, earning an unprecedented 17 curtain calls. That night, the King of the High Cs was born. But Pavarotti's success was not confined to the opera house. He recorded dozens of albums, appeared on television, and became one of the most recognized figures in the music world. His 1979 concert at New York's Madison Square Garden marked one of the first times a classical singer filled such a massive venue, a testament to his universal appeal. The Three Tenors. Bridging worlds. Perhaps no moment defined Pavarotti's crossover success more than the Three Tenors. In 1990, alongside Placido Domingo and José Carreras, Pavarotti performed in Rome during the World Cup. The concert, broadcast to millions, transformed opera into a global sensation. Their rendition of Puccini's Nessun Dorma became an anthem, and the accompanying album became one of the best-selling classical recordings of all time. The three tenors continued to perform together throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. bringing opera to stadiums and television audiences across continents. Pavarotti's warmth, humor, and genuine joy for music made him the heart of the trio. Pavarotti and Friends. The humanitarian artist. Beyond his artistic triumphs, Pavarotti was deeply devoted to humanitarian work. His Pavarotti and Friends concerts, held annually in his hometown of Modena, brought together an extraordinary range of artists, from Bono and Sting to Mariah Carey and Eric Clapton. These events raised millions for charities supporting refugees, children affected by war, and victims of natural disasters. Pavarotti once said, "The voice is a gift from God, and I must share it with others." His commitment to helping others reflected the same generosity that defined his performances. Awards, honors, and lasting influence over his career. Pavarotti sold more than 100 million records, won multiple Grammy Awards, and received countless honors, including the Kennedy Center Honor in 2001. He performed before royalty, popes, and presidents, yet always maintained an approachable, down-to-earth charm that endeared him to fans everywhere. His recordings remain benchmarks for aspiring singers. Generations of tenors cite Pavarotti as their inspiration, not only for his technical perfection but for his ability to convey pure human emotion through song. Final years and farewell. In 2004, Pavarotti embarked on a farewell tour that took him to cities around the globe. Even as his health declined, his passion for performing never waned. Diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2006, he continued to sing and teach until his final days. His last public performance came at the 2006 Winter Olympics in Turin, where he sang Nessun Dorma to an audience of millions. It was a poignant and unforgettable farewell. His voice, though aging, still carried the same power and emotion that had defined his life. Luciano Pavarotti passed away on September 6, 2007, at the age of 71. His funeral in Modena drew thousands of mourners, including world leaders, artists, and fans, all united by the memory of his extraordinary gift. Legacy of a legend. Luciano Pavarotti's influence endures far beyond his recordings and performances. He transformed opera from a niche art form into a global celebration of human expression. Through his voice, he communicated love, sorrow, triumph, and hope, emotions that transcend language and culture. He once said, "I think a life in music is a life beautifully spent. And this is what I have devoted mine to." Few artists have lived those words as fully as Pavarotti did. Today, his name stands alongside the greatest figures in music history, a symbol of passion, excellence, and the power of the human voice. Luciano Pavarotti, the golden voice that captivated the world. Full-length feature. Luciano Pavarotti's name is synonymous with grandeur, passion, and the sheer beauty of the human voice. Often hailed as the people's tenor, he brought opera out of the elite concert halls and into the hearts of millions around the world. Whether performing Puccini at La Scala or sharing the stage with pop stars in charity concerts, Pavarotti's voice and presence radiated warmth, generosity, and unmatched artistry. Roots in Modena. A humble beginning. Born on October 12, 1935, in Modena, Italy, Luciano Pavarotti was the son of a baker and an amateur singer. His father, Fernando Pavarotti, was a tenor in the local church choir and introduced young Luciano to the beauty of opera through old recordings of Enrico Caruso and Beniamino Gigli. His mother, Adele, was a woman of great practicality, often encouraging Luciano to pursue a steady career, but even she could not deny her son's growing passion for music. Though his upbringing was modest, Modena's rich musical tradition nurtured his dreams. Pavarotti often recalled his early experiences singing with his father in church. describing it as the first time I truly understood the joy of sound. Initially, his aspirations leaned toward professional football, and he was even a promising goalkeeper. However, a trip to Wales in 1955 with the Chorale Rossini Choir, which won first prize at an international competition, convinced him to dedicate his life to singing. Finding his voice, training and early struggles. Pavarotti began his vocal training under Arrigo Pola, a respected local tenor who offered to teach him for free after recognizing his natural gift. Later, he studied with Ettore Campigalliani, a renowned teacher who also trained the legendary soprano Mirella Freni, a childhood friend of Pavarotti. His early years were marked by financial hardship and uncertainty. He supported himself by teaching and briefly working as an insurance salesman while continuing his studies. Despite the challenges, he persevered, driven by his belief that singing was not something I wanted to do, it was something I had to do. In 1961, at age 26, Pavarotti's perseverance paid off. He made his professional debut as Rodolfo in Puccini's La Bohème at the Teatro Municipal in Reggio Emilia. Critics immediately recognized his potential, a tenor voice of rare brightness, clarity, and emotional sincerity. The making of a star, rise to international fame. The 1960s marked Pavarotti's rapid ascent. In 1963, he performed at London's Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, stepping in for the ailing Giuseppe Di Stefano. His performance stunned audiences and critics alike, heralding the arrival of a new star in the opera world. Luciano Pavarotti, the eternal maestro of the human voice, comprehensive feature. Luciano Pavarotti's story is one of passion, perseverance, and a once-in-a-century voice that transcended barriers of language, class, and genre. For nearly half a century, he was the embodiment of opera's grandeur and humanity, a singer who could fill the world's greatest concert halls with soaring high Cs, yet still touch the soul of an ordinary listener on the street. His life was not merely a career in music, but a testament to the universal power of art to connect hearts across the world. Early life. From baker's son to budding tenor. Born on October 12, 1935, in Modena, Italy, Luciano Pavarotti was raised in a modest home where warmth and music coexisted despite financial hardship. His father, Fernando, was a baker and part-time tenor who often played recordings of his idols, Enrico Caruso and Beniamino Gigli, on an old gramophone. Luciano's earliest memories were of standing beside his father in the local church choir, their voices blending in harmony. From a young age, Pavarotti was enchanted by the idea that sound could convey emotion in its purest form. Yet, his path to music was far from straightforward. As a teenager, he was an avid soccer player and even dreamed of playing professionally for Modena's football team. However, his passion for singing eventually outweighed his love of sport. During his 20s, Pavarotti studied under Arrigo Pola, who taught him the foundations of operatic technique, breath control, diction, and projection. Later, under Ettore Campigalliani, he refined his sound into the clear, luminous tone that would later define his artistry. The years of training were difficult, at times. He supported himself by selling insurance and teaching music lessons. Yet he never gave up on his dream. Breakthrough and the birth of a legend. In 1961, Pavarotti made his professional debut in Reggio Emilia as Rodolfo in Puccini's La Bohème, opposite his friend and fellow Modenese soprano, Mirella Freni. His performance received warm reviews. But it was his London debut in 1963, standing in for the ailing Giuseppe Di Stefano in La Traviata at Covent Garden, that launched him to international attention. A pivotal turning point came through his collaboration with Australian soprano Dame Joan Sutherland, whose technical precision and encouragement helped shape his early career. Their 1965 tour of Australia was transformative, and together they recorded several acclaimed albums that showcased Pavarotti's effortless coloratura and command of bel canto repertoire. By the early 1970s, Pavarotti was singing at the world's most prestigious opera houses, the Metropolitan Opera in New York, La Scala in Milan, the Vienna State Opera, and the Royal Opera House in London. His 1972 performance in Donizetti's La Fille du Régiment, where he flawlessly delivered 9 consecutive high Cs, became one of the most celebrated moments in operatic history. The audience's reaction, 17 curtain calls, cemented his reputation as the king of the high Cs. Vocal artistry. The science and soul of Pavarotti's voice was unique even among the greatest tenors. Critics and vocal experts often described it as sunlit, bright, open, and seemingly effortless. His upper register, extending to the high C and beyond, had a clarion brilliance, while his mid-range carried warmth and emotional depth. His mastery of legato, smooth connection between notes, gave his singing an unmatched lyrical flow. He had an extraordinary gift for dynamic control, moving seamlessly from a whisper to a triumphant fortissimo without losing tonal beauty. Moreover, his impeccable diction, especially in Italian, allowed every word to carry emotional clarity. But beyond technique, Pavarotti's greatest strength was his humanity. His performances were not just displays of vocal virtuosity, they were acts of storytelling. When he sang Che Galida Menina from La Bohème or Nessun Dorma from Turandot, audiences felt as though he was singing directly to them, every phrase charged with sincerity and love. He once said, "I always remember my father telling me, 'Luciano, if you don't feel it, they won't feel it.' That is the secret." The Three Tenors, a cultural revolution in 1990. Pavarotti joined forces with Placido Domingo and José Carreras to form the Three Tenors. Their first concert, held at the Baths of Caracalla in Rome during the FIFA World Cup, was a phenomenon. The performance was broadcast to over 1 billion people worldwide, introducing opera to audiences who had never stepped into an opera house. Their rendition of Puccini's Nessun Dorma became an instant global anthem. It captured the drama and triumph of the human spirit, and for many, it was their first exposure to the emotional power of opera. The trio went on to perform together for more than a decade, filling stadiums and selling millions of records. Through these concerts, Pavarotti helped erase the boundary between high art and popular culture. He believed that music, in its truest form, belonged to everyone. Pavarotti and Friends. The humanitarian artist. In addition to his musical achievements, Pavarotti's compassion and philanthropy were a defining part of his life. In the 1990s, he launched the annual Pavarotti and Friends concerts in Modena, inviting pop stars such as Bono, Sting, Elton John, Mariah Carey, and Andrea Bocelli to perform alongside him. These cross-genre collaborations raised millions for humanitarian causes, from aiding refugees in Bosnia and Kosovo to supporting victims of natural disasters in Africa. Pavarotti was also a United Nations messenger of peace and worked closely with the Red Cross. He believed that his voice, a divine gift, carried a moral responsibility. "The voice is not only for pleasure," he said, "but for giving hope." His charity work and ability to bring people together through music reflected his philosophy that art should be inclusive, healing, and universal. Awards, honors, and achievements over his lifetime. Luciano Pavarotti received countless accolades. Multiple Grammy Awards and Classical Brit Awards, Kennedy Center Honor, 2001, Freedom of the City of London, and honorary citizenships around the world. The Nansen Refugee Award, UNHCR, for humanitarian efforts star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He sold over 100 million albums, making him one of the best-selling classical artists in history. His 1990 album The Essential Pavarotti reached #1 on the UK charts, a rare feat for a classical recording. The final years. Courage and Farewell. In 2004, Pavarotti embarked on his farewell tour, marking over 40 years on the world stage. His health began to decline, and in 2006 he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Despite the illness, he remained active in music education, teaching masterclasses and mentoring young singers. His final public appearance came at the 2006 Winter Olympics in Turin, where he performed Nessun Dorma for a global audience. It was a profoundly emotional moment. His voice, though slightly aged, carried the same purity and strength that had inspired millions. Luciano Pavarotti passed away on September 6, 2007, at his home in Modena, surrounded by family. His funeral, held in Modena Cathedral, drew thousands of mourners, including dignitaries, fellow artists, and ordinary fans who came to bid farewell to the man whose voice had become a part of their lives. A legacy that lives forever. Luciano Pavarotti's legacy endures not only through his recordings and performances but through the spirit he instilled in music itself. He revolutionized opera's global reach, inspired countless singers, and demonstrated that beauty and emotion transcend cultural boundaries. He once reflected, "I think a life in music is a life beautifully spent, and this is what I have devoted mine to." Indeed, his life was beautifully spent, filled with song, generosity, and a boundless love for humanity. Even today, his recording of Nessun Dorma remains one of the most played classical pieces in the world, a symbol of hope and triumph. Every time that final Vincero, "I will win," rings out, it reminds listeners that the spirit of Pavarotti, the man, the voice, the legend, lives on. Luciano Pavarotti. A Voice Beyond Time, complete in-depth feature, extended edition. Luciano Pavarotti was more than a singer, he was a cultural icon who changed how the world experienced opera. His voice carried both power and warmth, majesty and humility. Through his art, he made opera accessible to millions, transforming a traditionally exclusive genre into something universal and deeply human. This extended portrait explores not only his life and humanitarian work but also his most acclaimed performances and recordings, the genius behind his vocal artistry, and his enduring influence on music and culture. The pinnacle performances, defining moments in Pavarotti's career. 1. La Bohème, Rodolfo. The role of a lifetime. Giacomo Puccini's La Bohème became synonymous with Pavarotti's career. The opera tells the story of a young poet, Rodolfo, who falls in love with the delicate seamstress Mimi. Pavarotti first performed the role in 1961, his professional debut, and it remained one of his signature parts for over 4 decades. His rendition of Che Galita Menina, Your Tiny Hand is Frozen, is often cited as one of the greatest in opera history. The aria's tender phrasing and effortless high notes showcase his signature qualities: purity of tone, emotional sincerity, and perfect control. When Pavarotti sang it, audiences didn't just hear Rodolfo's love, they felt it.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.